Hi, I'm Gary and welcome to my shop. In this video I'm going to show you how I put together a DIY teleprompter. This one is a bit of a build video as I go through some of the steps. Originally I wanted to make this design that would fold flat for storage. Unfortunately in this prototype I wasn't able to do that. I'll have to do some more design and engineering. Also in this one I had planned to use a 1/4-inch plate glass, but I found out, as I'll demonstrate later, that such a thick glass gave me a double image that was not suitable. We'll end up using a picture frame glass for my first prototype that is just a 1/16 of an inch thick and not plate glass, so more fragile but cheap and easy to replace. I built this box out of 1/2-inch plywood. I used some woodworking joinery, tongue and dado, as I will show. So that requires some joinery skills, albeit it's easy. I worked with this plan based on what I learned from others here on YouTube and my own tweaks to make it work for me. My greatest discovery was how I oriented my tablet under the reflector screen. Orienting it in a portrait mode made it much easier to see. So let's see how I did this. Now the next clip is one of my test clips as I was tweaking this, and I'm inserting it here for a quick example of how this will work. Some of this text is going to be different than you're hearing and seeing here. So this shows how the text scrolls across the display while my camera sees me without seeing the scrolling text. This is a demonstration on how this teleprompter works. I'll be shooting through the prompter with this text scrolling, and I'm doing a second camera to show how it looks from my side. This flows pretty well. You have to adjust the font sizes and scrolling speeds in the prompter software that you use. I use Teleprompter Pro for my Android tablet. My tablet's an LG model VK700 that I got through Verizon about a year ago. I'm quite happy with it and it works well. It's been much better than previous tablets I've had. The glass I'm using here is a 1/16 of an inch thick glass out of a picture frame. I do get a slight amount of double image, but it is tolerable. When I used the 1/4-inch plate glass, as I mentioned earlier, I got a lot of double image from that, and that was not tolerable. There's an example of the 1/4-inch plate glass double image I got. So I'm back to this regular glass. So it must be dependent on the thickness of the glass though to get those images. I don't think they make glass or plate glass thinner than 1/8 of an inch. As I mentioned before, build your teleprompter based on the size of the tablet or display you'll be using. I think about a 10-inch tablet is great size for this particular use. This is not for videos made in public presentations and not in front of a live audience. An ideal distance would be from your camera is about 6 feet or more. A smaller tablet will make it harder for you to see your text, and you'll be squinting and straining to see it, which will not appear good on the camera. The best orientation for your tablet is portrait rather than landscape. You can see it better. Landscape makes the screen wide and doesn't reflect as well. Use the prompter display in a portrait mode and the text will narrow so your eyes won't be tracking side to side and you'll be able to see it. There are some videos here on YouTube to help you learn how to use a teleprompter without looking like you're a robotical and reading from a book. So those are some good, useful resources. Okay, so here I'm going to get a start on making this teleprompter. I got a base here that I will cut to size for the base of the teleprompter. This is just some one-sided sanded CDX plywood scrap I had left over laying around. I got a piece of plate glass. This one is a 10 by 13, 1/4 inch thick. What's nice about plate glass, it's flatter. This is what we use for when I make up some of my sanding strips to adhere sandpaper to. I use plate glass because it's much flatter than any other glass is. Also, it's more durable and not as easy to break. So I'll be sizing up everything I make here based on the size of the glass I've got. Then I've got this piece of plywood I picked up. It's a 2x4. And I got a Baltic birch. And the reason I got Baltic birch is because it's more stable than other kinds of plywood. And this is all 1/2-inch thick stock that I'm getting here. And the face of this, it's not real pretty, but it doesn't have to be because this is all going to get painted a flat black anyway, so wood grain pattern doesn't make any difference. Then I picked up some of this 1/4 inch square strips. It's 1/4 inch all the way around, square strips. Kind of like a dell, but it's square instead. That was pretty cheap. This piece of plywood here was about $20 for the Baltic birch. You can get CDX sanded on one side for about $5 less. I like going with the Baltic birch because of the stability. This plate glass that I got that for like $8 at a local glass company. The square stock, I think it was less than $1, like 70 or 80 cents. So this is the materials I'm starting out with here to make this. And we'll move on here and I'll show you how I put this together. So it'll be like a build video. Okay, so I've cut my piece for my base, and I cut this at 11 inches by 16.5 based on my plans. And my glass is 10 inches wide. So I need, for the sides I'm going to put on here, I'm going to make all this out of 1/2 inch material. So I need an extra 1/2 inch on each side, so that means I need to add 1 inch to the overall width to fit the sides on. And then I'm going to put these tracks on in here at a 45-degree angle to support the glass. These are not the pieces I'm going to use. They'll be much bigger than this. And I'll use that 1/4 inch stock to create my holder for the glass. Okay, I'm going to measure up what I need for sizing for these side pieces. And to do that, I'm using this piece of, it's like 3/16 MDF. It's kind of soft and fuzzy on one side and smooth on this side. And to start out, I just marked a pencil mark here. It's a 1/4 inch up from this edge. And because that's where I want to stop this glass at when I put it into the framework. I want to stop it 1/4 inch up from here. Then took this triangle square, put this glass on here, hold this. It's not necessary to stand the glass up, that gets kind of precarious. And just kind of slide this down so this corner is real close to that pencil mark, maybe just a little bit above it. Then at this other end here, I'm going to make a pencil mark here, and that should be, the top end of where this glass will be when it's standing up. That'll give me the distance I need to measure for the height of this side. Now to double check, I'll stand up my piece here and see that my pencil marks fall within range, and they do. So perfect. That'll give me the total height that I need. My length I've already got measured out based on the length of my base that I already cut, which was 16.5 inches. Based on the size of glass I'm using, which is 10 by 13 inch. I will measure that up. So that pencil mark from the very bottom here gives me 9.5 inches. Then what I'm going to do is, on top of that 9.5 inches, because when I put these sides together, I'm going to use the tongue and dado joinery for assembling this box for good solid joinery. It's a simple joinery to make, and I'll show you that as we go through here. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch depth on the tongue and dado joinery. So it means I need to add a 1/4 inch for the top and the bottom, which is a 1/2 inch altogether. So instead of 9.5 inches, I'm going to need 10 inches in total height here. So there I've cut out a piece 16.5 inches wide. I'm going to be trimming that down to the 10 inches that I need. And this is for the sides. So I set my fence to 10 inches from my blade. Double check that to make sure. Now this piece here is like 24 inches wide. So I'll be cutting it to the 10 inches for each piece, which give me a slight sliver left over. maybe I can use this leftover piece here, part of building the platform that the camera is going to sit on. So, got my two side pieces here, both cut. 10 by 16.5 inches. Then I'll start putting my diagonal on here for supporting the glass. Okay, because I'm going to do a tongue and dado joint on here and on the top, I'm going to need this to be 1/4 inch for that tongue and dado, plus I wanted this stop to be at 1/4 inch above the surface here for supporting the glass. So, put this on here, locate my glass. I want to do this in a manner where I'm at this mark there at the 1/2 inch, and then also so that it squares up to this corner point up here. Got that in place. Then I take my pencil, make my mark for my line. That'll be how the square stock will go on to support this glass, you know, once it's in place here. Then I'll trim this piece of stock off here so it's about 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch below the top of this surface here, so it won't be in the way of the top that'll go on in a tongue and dado joint also. Have the bottom cut out and the two sides laid out, and I cut this tongue and dado joinery, which goes together like this, to give me a good solid connection here, good strong joint. And the way I cut those, and you can find them also on YouTube here, how to make these. I use an auxiliary fence here, and I gradually move it in and out to cut the dado. Then this piece is the tongue. So it's a bit of testing and finessing. I use some test pieces to kind of determine my blade height and some of the distances and everything to where it all was right, and then I made the tongue and dado joints on my final work pieces so they go together like this. And you probably can't see it here, but my lines run diagonally here where I'm going to put in those square stock for holding the glass piece in there. And I've got an exact measurement between here for the width of my glass. And then on the back part here is where I'm going to build the stand to set my camera on. And then the front portion up here is where my tablet will lay to reflect into the glass. Then what I'll do is get this all painted up. Also, I'm going to make a top piece here, which will be a tongue and dado joint up here also. Okay, I've got this box assembled here, got it all glued together, clamped it up and got it all glued. Trim this top a little bit short here so I can fit this glass in and out easily enough, because I'm going to want to have access to this for cleaning, so I want to be able to get it in and out. And then on the inside here, don't have the top glued on yet, but I will be doing that. I have my tracks in here, and I also got these other ones in here to keep the glass from sliding backwards on me. Don't want it to do that. So what I'll do now is I'll get this all primed up and painted, do it in a flat black. The reason I prime it is because anytime you're painting something, you want to prime the surface. That makes the paint adhere better so it won't peel and crack or chip off on you. It makes it stay a lot better. I'll get this primed and painted and get it ready for a show. Okay, another step I have to do is to drill a hole in the middle of the bottom here. I took my ruler, lined it up with each of the corners here to find center, and draw a line there, and then again with the opposite corner, draw a line there. The center here, marks my spot for a center, and then I use my scratch awl to indent it to give my drill bit a guide. Now I'm putting in these threaded inserts into here. So I have to drill this out. Since I'm putting in a 1/4 by 20 threaded insert, the diameter of the thread of this is much larger. So I'm using a 23/64 bit. Going to drill a smaller hole first to give me a guide from the other side to come through so I can try and minimize tear out on these drilling. Set this up. Put in my 23/64 bit. Get a piece of stock to stick underneath this for trying to prevent some tear out. Then I'll drill through from this side. Okay, give me a clean hole, both sides with very little tear out. Now what I'll do, get a start on this. These are kind of tricky, and trying to get this started with a good straight bite into there. So you got to go a little bit slow, give it a good guide, and then it goes in pretty good. I'll go enough to get this flush. That's pretty good right there. Then what I'm going to do is back this out, and I will make up some epoxy to put on the threads, and that will hold it in the wood securely. When you're making the hole for this, you want to be careful that you get a large enough drilled hole for this to go into. This piece, or this thread insert, is made of brass, so it does break easy. Broke one, and you can see it's got this slots here that the screwdriver fits into for driving it in. And this is the part on the top here where it's slotted that it breaks easily. So you want to make sure you get that hole drilled large enough. It doesn't have to be a really tight fit, just enough to get a grip, because with the glue in there, it's going to stay in there pretty securely anyway. So I basically have this box complete. I don't have the top glued on yet. Some of the white marks and stuff is from some dust, debris, and particles from the wax. This glass slips in and out into position. This paint's still a little bit tacky yet, although it's been drying for a couple days. So I use some paraffin wax to wax up the slide for the glass to go in. And once I have this together, I'll be able to, right now it's a little bit stiff, but I'll be able to remove this glass so I can clean it now and then, so the camera has a good clear glass to look through. Okay, I've got this teleprompter box together, and I set it on this tripod here. It's an old tripod, so it's really quite sturdy and stable. I think it's about 30-40 years old, so it's kind of like built like a tank. I don't know about the tripods today, but this box is heavy because it's made out of 1/2-inch plywood using 1/4-inch plate glass in there. So it's got some heft to it. You're going to want to make sure you have a good strong tripod to set this on. So getting this situated on there with everything being black, it was really hard to find that 1/4-inch mounting hole for securing it to the tripod. What I'm going to do is to try and build some kind of a guided framework around this here to help me get on point there a lot easier. So I'll just use this white pencil, mark out where I want to put my guides at. That way I'll be able to set it on there and find that hole a lot easier. On the bottom of this cabinet, this is the hole that the 1/4-inch screw goes into to mount to the tripod. Where I put on these strips to outline where the head of the tripod is going to fit into, then this is where the hole is. I just kind of use some tester's paint, mottled paint, to mark these white lines here. I had primed everything and painted it black. Then I marked it out in white here to make it a lot easier to find my spot when I'm trying to slip it onto the tripod, and I don't have to guess so much. When everything's black, then it's hard to find your orientation. Painted a little white around that hole. That'll make it a lot easier for finding the hole. Get my orientation correctly. Here in this image, I put my camera on a flat surface and a ruler up against the front of the lens. And you can see with this pointer here that the center of my lens is approximately 1 3/8 inches. Maybe slightly less than that, but that's pretty close. So that's a measurement I'm going to use for determining the center of my lens in the teleprompter. For determining the height of the mount in here for my camera mount, as you remember, I got the center of my lens was at 1 3/8 inches. And I measured this opening, and it's like 9.5 inches. And what I'll do is then, if I divide 9.5 by 2 in half, I get 4 3/4 inches. Then that gets me center in the box here. Then further, what I want to do is to get my lens center in the box here. So I need to subtract that 1 3/8 for my camera lens height from the 4 3/4 inches, and that'll give me the height of the platform I need to build in here. And that comes out to be 3 3/8 inches. So I had 9.5 inches, divided in half is 4 3/4, subtract the 1 3/8, and that gets me down to a 3 3/8 inch platform to build. So when I set the camera on there, the camera lens is going to be looking through the center. With those measurements, I made this quick little diagram on my note paper, and this will determine how I will dimension the platform for the camera to sit on. On my table saw, I ripped a piece of a 3-inch width with my fence, and then I cut this into sections here. Each of these are 3 1/8 inches wide, 3 inches wide going this way. Then I also cut a piece 3 5/8 inches wide here. Fits between here. It's going to serve as a support bracket for this mount. Maybe from another view. There. Okay, so I am gluing up this box. Give that time to dry. Then I'll paint it and mount it into the teleprompter box. I have my little stand built, and I glued it into place here, and I put it up so that the front of this touches the bottom where the glass meets here. And then I located this because my camera, now this looks a bit off center, but the way my camera mounts on this screw, this puts my lens in the center of the glass. Everything's a little bit of a mess here yet because I've got some cleanup work to do yet. As you can see here, I've got this box all together now. I've got this top glued on. See how I've got all the interior here painted black. Got my mount in here for the camera. So I've got this all fastened in. The screw that goes up mounts the camera there. I've got this rail where the glass will sit in. The glass will sit into these rails here. Kind of a completed box, and I'll show you how I mount it onto the tripod. And once I've got everything mounted up, then I'll slide the glass in because I don't want to take a chance on knocking things over and breaking the glass. Got this box built, and I'll set it on top of the tripod here. And as I've got these lines marked out on the bottom here as a guide, set that on the head there. Kind of finesse it around a little bit, get the screw to screw in, and it's on there solidly. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you got something out of it, or you found the inspiration to make something of your own, please give me a like and share. Also, please subscribe to see what I may come up with next. Thanks.